So my settled verdict on this is they want to die, and I'm here to help them do so. And so should you be, and everyone in this room should be ashamed until they've done something to kill at least one jihadist or bring about the physical and moral and political and military defeat and humiliation of these people, and the God in which they believe, and the non-existent deity in which they dare to take permission to try and kill us all.
Christopher, have you ever prayed?
Once for a hard-on.
All right, there. I was just listening to On the Offensive and some of his pals in a live stream, and I was chatting away in the comments. It was one of those streams where the comments was more fun than listening. And I mentioned a little story about, well, I'm going to tell you the whole story. And this is quite a nice story. It's sort of, you know, I've been doing a lot of political stuff lately, and a lot of people have been talking to me about, you know, how a lot of this stuff, although it's engaging, it can kind of bring you down. And my channel, I try and do a variety of stuff. And, you know, with Independent Man, he's, you know, he nearly got to 100,000 subs, nearly 500 videos, and he's jacked his channel because he just can't be around all this stuff all the time. And, you know, when you're editing and things, you can be spending 4 or 5 hours a day listening to social justice, communism, Black Lives Matter, etc., etc. So I was filled with real love. You know, I said after I explained it to him, I put in the chat, I said, gosh, it was wonderful being a kid. You know, and I was 18 when this occurred. 17. 18. I'm going to tell you. But before I start, give me some money. If you enjoy my channel, think about it. You know, my videos are usually between 10 and 30, 40 minutes. I try, you know, I've made 15 since I've been out here, so that's the last month. That's about one every 3 days, including a couple of interviews, a few live streams. $1 a month, you know, if a few more of you give $1 a month, I'd be absolutely comfortable out here. I'm fucking hungry, I need some more money. But do consider it. I think that's fair enough. You know, I put a lot of effort into this. I put a lot of personality, a lot of emotions, a lot of myself into it. So if you do enjoy my videos, just consider that. All the links are in the description. You can do one-off payment into PayPal. You can do Patreon and all that. Anyway, and thanks to the people who do that. You know, it means a lot. It's allowed me to make this big change in my life. Anyway, let's go. So, at 18 years old, I just started my degree, my art school degree down in Devon. I got my silly little dreadlocks, got my army clothes. You know, I'm away. I moved away from home at 16. So at 18, I'd already had 2 years out in the world. And I was an ugly kid. You know, I had goofy teeth. I was anemic. I was jaundiced. I was yellow at best and translucent white at worst. And usually sort of somewhere in between. If I'd been out drinking or smoking too much weed, which was quite often, you know, I was translucent. And as a young teenager, I didn't get a lot of girly attention. Suddenly, when I got to 16, my cheekbones come out. I grew my dreadlocks. They were all over me, and it was wonderful. 2 years away from home, I must have bedded about 500 women. It was just something else. And it, you know, they came to me. I didn't have to make much effort. You know, I remember pulling birds on acid, and all I was doing was staring at the wall, going, and like sort of pulling musical hairs out of my mouth. And before I knew it, I was just walking home with some absolute beauty. I met a bloke at college called James, who's ended up going out with the mother of my best mate's kid. My best mate's girlfriend's just killed herself. Doesn't life turn out strange? No one saw any of that coming. What a world. Let's go back to when it was perfect. So I said to this bloke, I said, should we go on a cycling holiday of Europe? We were juggling at the time, and we were both pretty good. Now, you've got to remember, this is pre the mad, weird second sort of summer of love. This is this is before everyone in England was juggling. You know, we could do 3 balls each, We could do 6 balls between us, throwing them at each other. Not throwing them at each other, juggling them between us. We could do 3 clubs each, and we could juggle 6 clubs between us. We could do 4 balls each. I could do 5 balls. And loads of tricks as well. Miller's mess, all really complicated tricks. And we were fucking good at it. You know, we were at art college. We were having sex. We were taking drugs. And we had a lot of spare time. You know, art college, you don't really have to do much work, which is a bit of a shame in retrospect, but at the time it was wonderful. And I was that year where they were bringing in the student loans, but they hadn't phased out the grants. So I was getting a grant and a loan and selling hashish and sulfate. Plenty of money. I didn't understand that students were poor. I had more money than I'd ever known. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't rich, but I didn't go without endless beers and drugs most nights. And so we decided to go on a cycling holiday to Europe. We both had these mountain bikes, not the ideal bikes for touring, but you know, they were pretty decent bikes. We put panniers on the back. You know, we prepared for it for a few months. We were meant to save up, but I remember the morning we left, we had about 50 quid between us. But we'd already paid the tickets for the ferry. And the ferry, we got on the ferry at, where was it? Somewhere on the south coast of England. Fuck me, it might have been Sheppey. And it went to Vlissingen in Holland. And we got on the boat and we spent all our money on booze. We were drinking in the bar, God knows what. And then we bought a bottle of Southern Comfort. I mean, that lets you know we were 18. And I just remember being on this ferry and just being really aware that my life was ahead of me. You know, one of the things that I'm ever so grateful for was I knew at 18 that life was wonderful. I knew that I was aware, I had gratitude. And I think that's something that's really missing in a lot of young people. To be young, to have your health, to be at college, you know, to be getting money off the government to study something you love. And something as simple and free as art. You know, and I knew it was wonderful. And the college I was at, Dartington College of Arts, look it up. Endless problems. By problems I mean great things like parties with tutors, all the tutors doing drugs. An avant-garde art college as well. We didn't have to paint portraits. You do whatever you wanted. You know, one of my third-year art pieces was called Discipline and Punish, named after Foucault's book Discipline and Punish. And this piece of work, basically, these people had to obey certain rules. They had to sign their names before they come in. They had to read all these pseudo-legal documents. You know, they didn't know they weren't real. They thought they were. They looked the part. They looked like the lawyers were involved and all that. There was a desk, a receptionist. They had to fill it in, sign it, countersign it, thumbprint, all this, copy for them, copy for the records, all that. And they had to agree to obey by the rules. And the rules were establish no eye contact with anyone in the space, follow the black line on the floor with pigeon steps, and leave the room within 1 minute. There was no mention of what happened if you broke the rules. Now, in the room was me and a mate with these sticks. They had a little bit of padding on them, but they were still like broomsticks. We had ice hockey helmets on, gum shields, padded clothes, army clothes, big boots. And as soon as they broke any of those rules, i.e. were in the space for longer than a minute, veered off the black line on the floor, or established eye contact, we beat the shit out of them. Every single person got the shit kicked out of them, because you walk into a room and there's a black line on the floor, the first thing you do is look up, and we're there, run at them, bang, 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 and they ejected them from the room. Say what you want about that as a piece of art, say what you want about it as a piece of performance, but I'm giving an example of the sort of things I got to indulge in at college, and we got to talk about it, and I talked about Foucault's Discipline and Punish and all that sort of thing, panopticism, etc., etc. So immersed in that culture. And I'd grown up in Dartford, like the industrial chemical North Kent, and now I was in the blissful Devon countryside, where the soil is red as blood and the grass is green as grass. And it was wonderful. And there was all these gorgeous hippie sort of country girls with, you know, lovely skin and lovely long thick hair and sexual appetites, wonderful times. And then in the second summer it was, and I said to my mate, let's go away. Let's go on this cycling holiday to Europe. Let's juggle. We can make money busking in the streets. And he was up for it, and like I say, we'd been planning it for weeks and looking forward to it. And one of the amazing things about being at university or being at college when you're doing a degree, you know that you've got a couple of years ahead of you there. Your life is sorted for a couple of years. You're not at work. You know, I had all the mates I grew up with, either unemployed or working. You know, they were breaking their backs, plastering, bricklaying, plumbing, all that sort of thing, training. And not earning a lot of money, £200-300 a week. They thought it was a lot of money, but I remember thinking, I will never work for that. You know, slightly arrogant, but also ambitious, wanting more. But knowing that I had 2 years laying on my back in the beautiful Devon countryside, literally. You know, that art college, there was only about 600 students, and about 450 of them were girls. And out of the remaining 150 blokes, about 100 of them were like upper middle class, hello, unattractive beaters. Out of the remaining 50 that were working class sexually active alphas, half of them were ugly as fuck. The remaining half of the remainders had girlfriends, and that left about 5 of us, and I was one of them. You know, some weeks I was banging 3 or 4 different women. What times? So amongst all that, you know, that's the context of how happy I was, and knowing it, having the gratitude to know that this was amazing, that art college was an amazing time, that I had an amazing group of friends. You know, we lived in this house called the police house, which was behind the old police station. There was 4 police houses. I lived in 2 of them. I lived in police house 3, and the next year police house 4. And there were parties there every night, and we'd painted all the walls, and everyone knew each other. Oh, just wonderful. And that summer we were going on this cycling holiday. You know, I remember he turned up at my house, and I think we got a lift to I think it was the Isle of Sheppey. Got on this huge ferry, drinking Southern Comfort. I can remember we went to the bar. There was a big restaurant and a bar, and we were in there, and we could barely walk, and we were falling over, and my mate James was sick, and we were throwing money at him behind the bar, just being little arseholes, but kind of harmless, not aggressive, certainly more stupid than showy offer. You know, we weren't throwing money up going, you cunts. We were just like, sorry, how much do I owe you? What time is it? Hello? You know. And 6 a.m, we were sort of walking off that thing, barely able to walk. Our bikes, what's going on? And penniless. Our holiday started. We were hungover and hungry and thirsty and penniless. In Vlissingen, a place called Vlissingen. We didn't even know where we were going or anything. And we got on our bikes, and we were sort of trying not to run into each other or other cars, and we saw a load of other cyclists. And I said, well, let's follow them. They're probably going into town. But this was Holland. And the cycling population of Holland is massive, because Holland is flat. It's an artificial country. It's been bound by dikes. There's not a ring of lesbians. They've stopped the water. It's just flat. And it is so flat. And so people ride bikes there, and you know, and the country has, you know, made it easy to do that. There's cycle paths nearly everywhere, and you can just cruise around. So we followed these cyclists, thinking they're probably tourists like us. We followed them for about 10 miles, and we followed them to work. They just turned up at some factories near some docks, and we were like, oh fuck. So in the end, we got the maps out. This is pre-internet, pre-mobiles. Got the maps out. Oh, shocking headache by now. We rode off, and we got somewhere, and we were busking. We earned some money. We went out drinking again, earned some money. We were putting the tent up anywhere we could when we were half pissed. We'd wake up in the morning, and we'd be like on a roundabout. You want to try opening the tent with a fucking hangover, open it up, and there's just cars going round. You're like, oh shit. Brilliant times, not a care in the world. And we finally got to a place called Ghent in Belgium. I think we went to Amsterdam. We had a few bifters and that. And, you know, this was amazing because skunk and things, hybrid cannabis, hadn't really reached England. This was about 91. You know, there were bits of it about, but you'd be paying £15 for a gram and all that. You know, most of it was solid hash, soap bar. You remember the stuff. And we could go into cafes. It was amazing to be able to go into a cafe and get the old menu and go, oh, I'll have some Northern Lights, and just be tripping, sitting there at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, midday, And I remember talking to this American woman who was about 50, who was telling me about how she grew up in California. And my mate who I was there, James, was sitting next to me, and she was just totally ignoring him. She kept feeding me different bits of weed she had, and he was kept, no, can I? I was just going, yeah, nice, yeah, that one's nice. And he was like, can I? I was like, no. Anyway, I think we went to Antwerp, Belgium, and then we ended up in Ghent, and what a beautiful city, Ghent. Gothic European, amazing castles, and these buildings with just these repeated beautiful patterns everywhere. Oh, it was something else, man. I wonder what Ghent's like today. It was, and the weather was all perfect, and because we didn't have a lot of money, just what we earned through juggling and that, we were buying bread and cheese and raw garlic, and you'd bite a bit off the garlic, put a bit of cheese in your mouth, then eat the bread. And once you'd filled up on that, you'd hit the beers. And again, we weren't used to cheap beers. In England at the time, you was paying £3.50 for a pint, and we were buying these like sort of little cases of 10 beers for like £5. It was great. So we're in Ghent, and I'm juggling. And I'm on my own. We weren't passing them at this point, because when you passed them, you'd get an audience, and it was easier to drop them. And you've only got to drop a couple of times, and people start moving away. But on our own, well, to be honest with you, I wanted to be on my own because I was better than him. And there I was, doing my juggling. All that. Oh, and she started walking past. Heaven. An angel, about 6'2", about my height, and this blonde bob that went up brutally up there. You know what I mean? Shaved round the back, all perfectly presented, gorgeous. Not too much makeup, but not too little. Immaculate outfit, not over the top, but you could tell it was pricey goods. Oh, she was decorated well, and I remember I blagged it. I'd done the old can't concentrate. I just let the balls drop and let my hands carry on moving. That sort of. And I thought, you've got to seize your opportunity. Now, I know I'm dashingly handsome now, but then, with my, and she was smiling, and I knew it. It bang. The language was happening. The non-verbal cues would just. There was a dual carriageway of non-verbal vehicles driving the road of love between us. It was immediate, it was automatic, and it was awesome. And I just sort of called her over, and she come over, and I said, "Can I meet you later?" And in sort of broken English, but sexy, sort of slightly French, she went, "Okay, maybe we can have an appointment." And I was like, "Oh, an appointment? Oh, yeah." And I was just melting. I mean, at 18, your balls are active. As Christopher Hitchens once said, since I'd already realised my balls would give me no peace, I decided to give them no rest. And I could fuck all day long. Not that I had a girlfriend at the time. I'd left her. My first love, who I still have an incredible place for in my heart, and I treated like shit. It's in one of the other videos. But I'd left her for this holiday. And I just was desperate. And this, she was beautiful. Catwalk model, turned out. So there's an example of how beautiful she was. And so we arranged this meeting, and I remember thinking it was weird because she was using words like appointment and that. And when she left, I suddenly thought, hang on, is she brass? Have I just arranged to see a hooker? I didn't know she was a catwalk model at this point. Anyway, when my mate come over and he was like, "How you doing? I made 20 quid. I was like, "Oh, I've made about 70 and I've got a date." And we arranged to go to her house. I told her I had a friend, and she said, "Well, we'll have this appointment and we'll go to her house." So later on we met her, and as she walked over, he was like, "Oh, fuck off." And I was like, "Yeah, no, shush. And she had a friend with her, this bloke, and she was 29 years old, and he was about 29. And when you're 18, 29 is an adult. And I started thinking, fucking hell, hang on, this is a bit dodge. What are we getting ourselves into? They might be murderers or something. You know what it's like. But we went anyway, went round her house, and it was like an artist's house and all this stuff. And she had a child. She had this young boy called Chadwick. Her name was Carol. And but the house was so exciting. We had to break in. She'd lost her key. We had to smash a window and all this stuff. Really good fun. But her house, it was sort of sparse. But what the objects she did have were incredible. And I was just totally seduced. And we sat round her kitchen table with this bloke drinking tea and laughing. I remember at one point she just told him to go. It was her way of telling him and us, I'm fine with these. And he left. And we carried on chatting, and then she ordered food and all this lovely food. I remember first time I'd ever had sugar bread with like raisins in it and the sultanas and with the tea and the hashish. And it was just incredible. Like we were only 10 miles over the border, so everyone there smoked the finest skunk and had loads of it. And that night, when it was time to go to sleep and all that, she told Jim that where his bed was. And that was downstairs, in the same room as her little boy. And mine was upstairs in the same bed as her. And that first night, wow, man. It's awesome being young. And again, if you're young, or even if you're not young, but especially if you're young, have gratitude. When people tell you that life's great when you're young, believe them. I mean, life's great when you get older, but there's certain things about youth. There's an innocence to it. There's a wonder. There's certain things about getting older which make it better. I mean, in my 40s, I've had some amazing times that I could never have had in my teens or my early 20s, but there's that wonder, there's that innocence, there's that discovery, there's that newness, there's that lust for life, and she just took me. I'd only really had sex with my girlfriend. I'd had loads of sex, but it was always drunk and a bit sort of showy-offy. But I gave myself to this woman in an intimate way that I hadn't really done before. And it just was magical. I can feel it. I'm so back there. The smells, those beautiful Belgian bakeries that would just come up, and the cold beer by the bed, and not like at art school, just shit faced on like bottles and bottles of beer, but just a couple of drinks and more being lost in the hazy magic of a new, intimate heart relationship rather than just a physical one. I ended up with women so often at college. When I was bragging back then about banging 5 birds a week, it was because I didn't want to go home on my own. I just wanted someone to spend some time with me. And that's loneliness. And when you're with them and you're fucking them and you're kind of thinking, do we have to do this? I just wanted to talk to you. But this was different. It was, we were consummating a feeling. The sex, the physical act was a consummation of an emotional intimacy. And that was wonderful and desperately lacking in my life. And it was funny because the next morning I was saying to James, I was trying to explain all that to him, but in my limited ability to understand that at that age. And afterwards he went, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because while she was screaming her orgasming head off, I was downstairs reading a Sesame Street book to her 5-year-old kid in fucking French just to try and drown out his mother coming upstairs. We spent 6 weeks at her place. I have to admit, I felt a bit sorry for James because I was just having it off, like literally and figuratively. She got us some work plastering, so we were, preparing plasterboard, just sanding it down and banging a few nails in, and that earned enough money so we could pay her a bit of money. We could buy our own weed, so we weren't just on the ponce. We were getting pizzas delivered. We were buying ingredients for cooking. We made them beans on toast, a bit of English cooking, and I remember a 5-year-old kid, he couldn't handle it. I remember once they got us this lovely sausage. It was a spiral, and it was quite typical to them. And sitting round the table, stoned out my head, I said, in England we call these a turn sausage. And they're like, oh, it is what is it? Her brother. She introduced us to her brother, David, who made a fortune in antiques. And he went, what do you call it? A turn sausage? I was going, yeah, just for no reason. I'm drinking tea all day, putting it in the microwave to warm it up, and what an adventure. She introduced us to some of her artist friends, and getting used to that amazing European drinking culture that we knew nothing of. Well, in those days, we knew about the bars closing at sort of ridiculous times, like 3 in the afternoon, and not being open again till 6, and closing at 11:30 just as you're getting drunk, or having to rush the beers down you. In Ghent, we left the house at 11:30 at night to go out drinking, and the city would be alive with artists and writers, and I mean artists and writers, not people who wanted to be artists and wanted to be writers, people who were writing and making art, making a living, making a name for themselves. You know, the father of the kid lived in New York, and he was a producer, worked with U2 and Daniel Lanois, and she was playing these Daniel Lanois tracks, which are pretty ropey, but to this day, if I hear them, I'll shed a tear. It was amazing. She had this one cassette, had a few Daniel Lanois tracks on it and a bit of Nick Cave, and any of those songs, if I still hear them, I'm transported back to that wonderful house in Ghent and that beautiful summer of, 92, 91? Glorious. When we finally left there, like I say, we'd done, I think, 5 or 6 weeks. And maybe the first bit was about 4, I don't know. But I finally said, me and James, we were meant to be on a cycling holiday of Europe. We got there, we'd got through Holland, went to Utrecht, Amsterdam, then Ghent, and just stayed there. Parked the bikes up while I was having this romance. So we decided to leave. And on that first day, we rode about 50 miles. And when we arrived in this middle of nowhere, we parked our tent up in this farmer's field, and we woke up in the morning. It was just pissing down. We had no food, we had no money, we were in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly there was like a sort of hello. I was like, oh fuck. And we've unzipped the tent, and there's this bloke there, and he said, oh, hello, who are you? And we were like, oh, we're just some blokes. We're riding around the country. And he went, okay, I am the real Moses. The real Moses. And I've turned around to James and gone, did you hear that? He's the real Moses. And the geezer's pulled up his shirt and he's got a tattoo saying Moses. He went, see? I was like, oh yeah, see James, he is the real Moses. And he went, you want something to eat? And I was like, oh bingo, yes we do. And I sort of opened the flap and I watched him walk off to this big van, and as he's got there, I see what I assumed to be his wife come out and this other bloke. And he's gone in the back and he came back with a round of bread, about that round, and a big slab of cheese, like a brie or something. And I was thinking, fucking wicked. And he's come back and he's about to give it to us, and his wife has just snatched him out of his hands. The woman snatched him out of his hands. I was like, oh, if you are the real Moses, go and have a word. They've gone off, and I can hear him arguing. I'm thinking, oh man. And about 5 minutes later, he came back and he'd give us about 5 cream crackers and half a tube of Primula with shrimp and cheese. Do you know, it's cheese in a tube. It's fucking rank. It's like what you'd imagine you'd get if you melted some real cheese, separated it so it was just the rennet. Anyway, after the rain had soaked all our clothes through in the tent and the real Moses had gone off to part some fucking Dead Sea elsewhere, I said to James, you know what? I said, we've only got a few weeks left out here. We're soaking wet. We've got no money. We've got a bit of Primula and a couple of crackers. It was better at Carol's. She'd given me 2 photos of her, and he'd caught me looking at them that morning, and he just went, I knew this would happen. I said, well, let's be honest. Where the fuck are we? And I just remember thinking, if we don't get to go back there, I'm going to be gutted, so I've got to make this happen. I said, look, are we here just to ride around? Are we here as like an endurance? It was more fun there. We ate well. We met loads of people. We were drinking, smoking weed, having meeting. It was better than this. And he went, yeah, I agree. And I was like, sweet, let's go. We packed up. We split the crackers and the cheese. Bang. And we done it back 50 odd miles. I remember when we arrived in Amsterdam, I'd got my front wheel caught in the tram track, shot over the fucking top, grazed both my knees, claret running down my shins, didn't care. All day I'd just been dreaming of getting there. Got back to her house, bang, bang, bang on the door. She opened it, looked like a dream and like a novel, like a romantic film noir. She went, I knew you would come back. I knew it would be today. Oh, and she was so sincere. She wasn't trying to be that character. She was that person. I knew you would come back. I knew it would be today. Oh, man. When I was about 12, 13, I used to sit at home when my mum and dad had gone to bed and my brother, and I'd watch films on BBC Two. And there would often be these films about European kids, like in Paris or like Milan, and they'd be drinking beer and smoking and sitting in windows of tenement blocks overlooking the city and kissing girls. And I remember thinking, how comes my life is fuck all like that? You know, I'm just like a weird child. They're having a right romantic time. And when she spoke to me like that, I was finally there. I knew you'd come back. I knew it would be today. And I was just like, this is perfect. Life is amazing. And we've gone in, and she's ordered pizzas, and of course, 1/2 ounce of skunk went down on the table. She invited her brother round, Frank, what was his name, the artist? Frank Leno, maybe? He came round, her brother, they've all come back round, and they're all cracking up. They're all like, oh, we missed you already. Oh, the English are back. And it was like, tell the whole of Ghent. And we went out to the bar we went to a lot of the time, and they were all like, oh, we thought you left. Did you just keep going round the world and come back? And people, I remember one bloke said, you pedal so fast, so come back for Carol. And it was, oh, God, this is fucking brilliant. And of course, there comes a time when you've got to go back to university. Got to go back to art college, and that time came, and I had to go, and I always promised her I'd go back, and I've never gone back since. You know what? I might have to do that. I might have to go back to Ghent and find Carol. Life can be so emotionally fulfilling. It can be so wonderfully intimate. It can make of you a mystery of intention, emotion, and love. And it can catch you out. And it's truly wonderful. And it's worth all the pain and all the sorrow. They pale into insignificance when you're involved in absolutely beautiful affairs of the young heart.